So number one on the list, which when you told me this, I could not believe it
Mm-hmm.
because it is my favorite album of all time, but I was not expecting it to be the number one album according to Apple Music. And that is The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And I was not expecting to agree with them on this aspect of the number one because I thought it was going to be Thriller. And if you talk about like
Mm-hmm.
my favorite album, like even if you asked me like, Will, what's the best album of all time? I probably wouldn't say The Miseducation. I probably would just say Thriller because of the commercial impact and critical impact and longevity. But for The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill to end up as number one, it's insane and it's beautiful. I think like one of the best ways to just like even Jay-Z, when you asked him, someone asked him a long time ago, what's the best album of all time? He said The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. He could have said any of his albums. He could have said a Biggie album, but
Mm-hmm.
he at one point said, I don't know if he still feels this way, but he mentioned The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Now, again, I don't know if that was before Beyonce came out with Lemonade or before he married Beyonce. Maybe he would have said one of her albums. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
um, it is. I absolutely love that it's number one because I absolutely love this album. Um, and I don't even know. Like, I kind of wish, like, if I was my parents, or like, I wish this was the way I discovered hip hop, right? Like, this is the perfect blend of classic R&B and neo soul, and I feel like if this had been the way, like I wish this was how I got into hip hop. It wasn't, but like I said, to me, this was the perfect album to kind of blend what I was starting to get into. And like on the last, I just said Erica Badu is the queen of neo soul, and I really think she is. But I think this is the quintessential neo soul album. This is the quintessential R&B album, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of ends up being the quintessential album, I guess, according to Apple Music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if Lauryn Hill had been able to continue her trajectory, she might have become the queen of neo soul. Like we might be talking about her instead of Erica Badu because Lauryn Hill brought a hip hop rapping aspect that is very vital to neo soul. Like if you release a neo soul album and it doesn't have like a feel of hip hop, it's not really neo soul. You know what I mean? Like that's not neo soul is hip hop combined with R&B. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
means. And it to me, it's not embodied greater than on an album than this album by Lauryn Hill. And we talked a little bit about how it most songs are about love, right? And we talked a little bit about skits too. And I still think Late Registration has like the greatest skits of all time, but this
Mm-hmm.
album has some really, really great skits, and it's definitely at least number two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she talks about love in such a brilliant and introspective way. I love the way that she unpacks it because it feels different than all the other love songs, all the other love albums that we're used to. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
while that is like the main theme, she also explores other ideas on this album, but we know that's the main theme. But either
Mm-hmm.
way, she talks about it, talks about real love, she talks about fake love, she talks about toxic love, talks about
Mm-hmm.
romantic love, talks about family love, city love. It's all these different aspects instead of just like the classic, I love you songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I almost don't even know what else to say because it just speaks for itself so well. I mean, to me, my favorite song on here is definitely Nothing Even Matters with D'Angelo. I listen to the
Mm.
song over and over and
Such a
over again.
good, what a good feature.
Hmm. Um, One of my favorite, I love Lost Ones. I love Doo Wop. Everything is Everything is another great one. Every Ghetto, Every City is a
Mm-hmm.
true standout track to me. And Can't Take My Eyes Off You is another standout track to me. And like
Mm-hmm.
again, this is another like perfect album. I don't have any skips on it. And the only thing I wish is that Lauryn Hill that we got some more of just her rap skills because we get a lot of them, but it feels like she's kind of using her hip hop abilities to complement her singing abilities. Like and that's kind of how she is. Like I'd say she obviously has incredible vocal talent, and I'd agree, like I would highlight that on my album. But she's also an incredible rapper, like
Yeah.
incredible, especially after listening to the score by the Fugees, which
Hmm.
is where I feel like she really lets loose. Like
Hmm.
to me, she's the best MC on the entire album. I think she's a better rapper than Wyclef Jean and a better rapper than I can't even remember the other guy. And she also sings way better than them too. And it's
Hmm.
like, you don't need them. And I feel like
Yeah.
this album proved that. While the score was a great album, I'm listening to it and I'm like, okay, get to the Lauryn Hill part. Get to the Lauryn Hill part. And
Right.
I'm like this is, like I said, obviously an incredible album. And I just would have loved, that's partly why I have Lauryn Hill in my super group, is because I would love to see if we just took a step back and just let her just rap over
Hmm.
whatever and just see what happens, because she is so, even lyrically and technically, just talented when it comes to just spitting bars. And
Yeah.
that's the only thing I think this album doesn't have, but it's still my top album. Um and yeah,
Yeah,
I just
I think the sacrifice of not having as many like hard bars in
mhm,
here is you get the diversity in
mhm,
this album because like I don't feel like hip hop adequately categorizes it or rap adequately categorizes it or neo soul or R&B. Like I don't think anything like any one genre can really like fully encompass what she's doing on here because I think one of my when I first listened to this album, one of my surprise hits was To Zion with Carlos Santana on it, which is a crazy beautiful song about her anticipation of her child and
mhm.
how thrilled she is to be a mother. But to have Santana like shredding it on the guitar
Oh
in this
yes.
hip hop, I'm like,
Oh
what
yes.
am I even listening to? But at the same time, I'm tearing up because it's such a beautiful sentiment. I'm like, what is this album? What is happening right now? Like it feels like it kind of defies categorization by that point in like
Mhm.
the best way possible because instead of trying to make like oh I want to make a hip hop album, it's like I want to make a piece of art, and then she did, and it's incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I kind of go back and forth with this one because I'm like, Tetsuo and Youth, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, like, as far as any gaps on my list, those are the closest. Like, this is like 99.9, and this is like 99.99, and Tetsuo and Youth is 99.98.
Hmm.
But I can't get over how incredible she is and how much feeling and emotion she conveys in this song. And again, I don't think there was a neo soul artist more talented than her at this time when it came out. And I think, like I said, had she been able to keep going, and again, I don't really know why, like the next album after this was like a live album. And, Lauryn Hill suffered a lot of vocal strain and she had a lot of personal things going on too. But again, like how I talk about, if the label hadn't interfered with Lasers, we'd be talking about Lupe completely differently.
Hmm.
If Lauryn Hill got to make a follow up, even if the album was completely unrelated to the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, even if we got the score minus the other Fugees, like a score type kind of album with just
Hmm.
Lauryn Hill, we
Yeah.
would have been talking about her in that category. We'd be talking about her as one of, like, we already do talk about her. Like, it's like, how
But
far
how
can you
much
climb? Like,
but how much higher would she
right.
like forget the Kendrick, Drake, J. Cole big three? It'd just be Lauren Hill because
She'd be
like
the one that's like, mother, the big three. It's just big
it's
me.
just big me.
It's just big me. And
But
that's
in the most
why,
soulful,
yeah,
beautiful way possible.
exactly, exactly. And like I said, that's why I chose her, because I'm like, if we wanted to do a hard hitting rap song, she could do it, and she would
Hmm.
crush it, with that group. And yeah, I mean, this album again, it's one of those beautiful albums that just speaks for itself too. Like I can't, like, even when they were talking about it on the podcast that I was listening to it, it's like they weren't really saying anything other than like listen to it and then you'll see what we mean.
Yeah.
And that's all you can really do. And I'm very impressed that my number one lines up with theirs. And I think it's just time to find out what your number one is.
Well, I do just want to say that I think I was surprised as well. And it's not my number one choice, but I am so happy it is Apple Music's.
Mm-hmm.
And as just a point to how like they kind of made their top 100, I'm so happy to see a hip hop album be the number one. I think these lists have way too often been dominated by like classic rock. Like look at like the Rolling Stones or like any other like big like
Mm-hmm.
newspaper music like group that are going to be talking about the best albums. I disagree with a lot of the placements they have here, but the amount of hip hop and rap and soul like inclusions they have here and as high as they are, it feels, it feels really good to see this album represented so high because I guarantee you it's going to introduce people who have not listened to this album to check it out now because it is like, oh, what are you talking about? Number one over Abbey Road, over Thriller? What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you it's going to have someone check this album out. And if it gets one person to appreciate Lauryn Hill, one more person, it's worth it because this album is special.
Mm-hmm. And I think I agree with you. And I think if I had to choose any hip hop album, any obviously I would choose this one because it's my favorite. But I feel like
Yeah,
if
you could choose and you
yeah,
did.
yeah, I did, yeah. But like, if Apple Music said like in our top hip hop album is All Eyes on Me by Tupac, or even if they said Ready to Die by Biggie, or
Or
even if they
Illmatic
said
by Nas
yeah, or
or
Blueprint by Jay-Z, even if they said
Chronic.
Good Kid, Mad City, I think I still would have been disappointed in any of those picks just because I don't think that fully could represent like hip hop as a whole. But I
Mhm.
don't think there's any hip hop fan that's disappointed with this album representing hip hop at the top and
Yeah.
representing R&B. I don't think there's anybody out there that's like the miseducation of Lauryn Hill. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, 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 that works. That should be
Mhm.
there. Um, yeah, I think it's very fitting, and I think it's one of the most fitting choices that they made.
Yeah.
Number one. Okay. This one is number one for a reason. No one will agree with it, but it stands true in my heart always. Interstellar, Daft Punk, 5555, Story of the Secret Star System.
Okay,
Really?
and is it by Daft Punk?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So it's
Interstellar. So the album is called Interstellar
5555.
5555. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
by Daft Punk. Now, is this one of their earlier albums or one of their later albums? Because they blew up with Get Lucky by Pharrell, but I don't remember which album that was on.
Oh, so that's when they became more mainstream. They
Okay.
started in the early mid 90s. Like, do you remember
Oh,
the
okay.
song One More Time? One more time. Okay.
Oh
Be-
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One
yeah,
more time. Yeah, yeah. I
that's
remember
Daft
that.
Punk. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's actually on that album.
Okay.
And what's super cool about that, one, that album is just it's a masterpiece. And what's cool is it's also like an anime movie. They took the whole album and put it over an anime. That was an
Really?
anime movie made for that album. And no words, just the whole album. And each scene is different songs of the album in order to create a story.
Okay. So now, according to the Apple 100, they actually have Daft Punk on there, but they have Discovery, their 2001 album, somewhere in the 20s. Now, do you think they got it wrong with their representation of Daft Punk? Because it looks like this one didn't make it on there. Which one do you think is actually better?
Discovery. Let me see. Let me look up the
I
track list
thought
for.
Discovery.
That was in
I, I
2001.
think Discovery is that same album.
Is it?
Discovery is just the album
Yes,
itself.
Discovery. He's right.
Interstellar
Yeah,
is the movie.
he's
Oh, okay. So you are with, okay. So
So it is
Apple
Discovery.
Music kind of agrees with you then.
I got you. Okay.
yes. He's completely right. I mean,
Okay.
Okay.
Because I was
but
like,
yeah,
man, I'd never heard of. I was trying to like think. I was trying to look it up. I'm like, man,
The
I could have.
Japanese,
I've
okay.
heard some of these. Okay. I
yeah,
guess I didn't realize it was a full movie that they
yeah.
had
Okay.
made in
Exactly.
conjunction.
Me
I
neither.
mean, so yeah, the album is Discovery. However, my preference is to enjoy it watching the anime. You know what I
Yeah.
Okay.
mean?
Okay.
But
Okay.
but yeah, like for me, this whole album is iconic. Like Short Circuit is a really good song. One More Time, everyone knows One More Time. Let's see, isn't Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger on this? I could be wrong.
I know that's the
Uh
song that Kanye West sampled.
Yup, he sampled that song. And
Oh, yeah,
yep,
it
it's
is.
Harder,
Yep.
Better,
Mhm.
Faster, Stronger.
Hmm.
So, like, just like this album along, I mean, like, it's got so many bops, so many songs that have been sampled. I mean, Daft Punk is iconic. To me, they are one of the best, like, techno hype bands to ever exist. And
Mhm.
they're number one. Fight me.
Hey, like I said, at least your number one appears on Apple's list as well. So I guess they agree with you. I didn't realize that we were talking about the same thing. Because like, so the album is Discovery, but the movie is Interstellar 5555. So
hmm
I'll definitely have to check that out and add it to the list.
hmm
Um, yeah, because like, I mean, I didn't realize the Daft Punk did One More Time, and before Random Access
Yeah.
Memories, where they like really went popular, um, I didn't know that Harder, Better, Faster was sampled. That Kanye West was sampling them when he did Stronger. So you can really tell that they've had like a long time impact in the music community, and especially with techno and house. Like, one of the most popular artists in the world is David Guetta, and he's pioneered a lot for bringing like techno house to EDM. Like he's kind of like the godfather almost of EDM. But again, you look at groups like Daft Punk that have been doing it since the 90s, like you wouldn't have EDM without their techno impact. And so like if you want to see like how much they've affected the music industry, look at how big EDM is, and then again, you get to EDM through techno. So you can really see the progression, and that they certainly did leave a legacy.
Mhm. I agree. I think it's the best Daft Punk record, Discovery, over Random Access Memory. I think it is. It's more raw. Like it feels more like they're trying more different things. It doesn't feel um as appealing for like commercial reason. Like it feels more authentically electronic instead of trying to be a big popular album, which I think RAM kind of felt like at points. Not that it's not good, but Discovery feels more authentic.
No, I definitely agree. Like Ram was a really good album. However, it had songs like Get Lucky on it with Pharrell, which was a good bop. And I think there was Starboy with The Weeknd. I,
I think he was featuring Daft Punk. Yeah.
oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
that may
was the
not have been
other.
on that album. Regardless, I feel like Discovery is where they started. And like you said, it's more raw, like it's more like they're trying like that I feel like that's partially what propelled them, to stardom. And as a result, when musicians are starting off half the time and they're trying to get food, that's when they come up with the best music. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So now
Mm-hmm.
that they're
The
like
struggle.
successful and they can feature anybody, I feel like it's yeah.
All right. And now drum
So
roll, please, because I guess the cat's out of the bag for my number one because it lined up so well. But
lined up
Ty,
perfectly.
what
My
is the
number
best album of all time?
a lot of these have been personal picks. This is a best album of all time that I think can hit it critically. Like I do not just believe this for myself,
Mm-hmm.
that it is the best album that I think I've ever listened to. I think it is also a contender for the top 10. And it made their 100. It didn't quite make 10.
Okay.
Um, but it is David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Um,
Okay.
have you ever listened to this album before, Will?
I have not.
Um, this have you ever listened to any David Bowie?
Didn't he
Like
do
aside,
that one song? You're gonna be
yes,
really mad at me, but didn't he sing on "Dancing in the Rain"?
Dancing in the Rain?
Didn't he
Oh,
do a song with Mick Jagger? And it was called like "Dancing in the Rain." Is that it? Am I thinking of? I'm not
wait,
thinking of the
now
right song,
I'm
am I?
confused because I didn't think
It like came out in the 80s.
that. I don't know.
Um,
He did Under Pressure. You know the song
I've
Under
heard that
Pressure?
song. Yeah.
He did Under
I thought
Pressure.
that
He
was
did
Queen.
um
I always thought that was Queen, but
it's David Bowie and Queen. They did it together.
oh, okay. That makes sense. So I've heard that one before. Um,
Um
what's the song? He did a song with Mick Jagger that became really popular. It
the
was like a
Dancing in the Rain? Well, while you're
maybe it
looking
wasn't
that
called
up,
that. Yeah,
I'll
Dancing in the Street.
oh, okay.
Dancing in the Street.
Okay. Yes. Um, no, so this album, it is often a lot of people will consider it like his best album. It is an art pop. I would call it an art pop, maybe, or like an art rock, glam rock, is a subgenre that's told a lot. Um, it is a concept album. It is a story. It starts off setting the stage as Earth is about to experience a calamity, like an Armageddon-esque calamity that's gonna pretty much kill everyone in like 5 years. And everyone
Hey,
is off to a great start, and
I
everyone
know.
is so mournful, and it starts off so sad, and then in comes Ziggy Stardust, and he is this androgynous bisexual rock opera star from outer space with his backing band called the Spiders from Mars. And the album is kind of his rise and fall in like the public eye, how he gets here, how he's perceived, and how he kind of lets his ego and his own I'm trying to think of the right words. How he lets his own ego like get in his way and like deteriorate the way he's viewed by the public, and he ends up like his public image begins like shooting down so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um it is so out there and weird, and because this came out in the 70s. 1972 is when this album came out, early in the 70s, post all of the Beatles. And this is a freaky album about this guy who is an alien, and he's this rock star, and he's coming to play music for these humans without hope, and they become so enamored by his like showmanship, but then they end up like hating him because he's so egotistical, and all he cares about is himself and the fame. And it's and it's sad, but when I listen to this album, I think of how I think of how art affects us as people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of how it's there when we need it the most, you know, to set the stage of this concept as like we're all going to die in 5 years. And then this flashy rock star, like in charge of like this rock opera, comes and like takes the world by stage and provides them a kind of beacon to like distract from that impending doom, because by the narrative that's set up, there's nothing that anyone can do to stop it. It's just in 5 years it's gonna come, and it's gonna, like, we're all gonna die. And so in the worst times, we will always look to art and to
Mhm.
music to be one of those things that kind of helps take the edge off. And this is an album, when I first heard it, that I think it kind of clicked with my own internal thesis of what music means to me personally. Like, music is the thing that kind of cuts the edge off when times
Mhm.
get tough. And to have an album by probably my favorite, one of my favorite artists of all time, I think personally the best entertainer that I wish I could have been around at the time to see, um, to have him kind of make this album that encapsulates exactly that feeling that I've always had. Oh my God. Oh
All
my God.
right.
It's it's so beautiful, and it's weird. It's so weird. Like, who calls the spiders from Mars? Like, what is that? It and it I think it encapsulates. I mentioned earlier a bit um about how I appreciate how he, like, oh, with Tyler the Creator and Igor, how he
Mhm.
created this persona that existed on stage and off stage for the album, and not for the album. That's David Bowie set the template for it with exactly here, by taking on the persona of Ziggy Stardust and kind of embodying that, not just on his stage presence, but in the album. And he carried that on, like, afterwards, and it was unlike anything that had come before it. Like, it set the standard for this weird, crazy kind of, like, this freaky, but also like really tight and solid and great rock.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's very poppy, but it's also, it's got like some harder hitting, like bluesy tracks, and it's got some like sadder, like the opening track, 5 years, like it's very somber and almost folksy, talking about this impeding death that is to come. But then you have like Moon Age Daydream, the introduction, we get to meet Ziggy Stardust for the first time, and it's just a weird fun track. And then we have like a harder hitting, like Suffragette City, like towards the end, which has these bigger, bolder guitar riffs that are kind of like driving throughout it. And then like Rock and Roll Suicide as the closer is such a beautiful closing track. I think it's an album, and it's a story that I think will never lose relevance. This is something that will always be in the conversation for the top 100, albums of all time. This is something that is timeless in that sense, because
Mhm.
what it did it for the time and what it's talking about will never not be relevant.
That is I wasn't gonna guess that, but I didn't even know this album. I'm gonna get slammed for this, but I didn't even know this album existed until you mentioned it.
You're
I knew
not a
David Bowie
I don't think
existed.
it's like a
That well
surprise
known.
that you aren't super into rock.
Yeah, like I said, this was not an album I would have found listening in my parents' like backyard or in their chest in their garage.
Yeah,
But
definitely not.
I think concept albums, like I didn't even know, like in the 70s, I didn't even know they did concept albums.
That
Um
they were
so
big. They were big back in the 60s. That's when they were
60s. Okay.
kind of bigger, and then they kind of fell out of fame for a while. And then I want to say like the 90s, 2000s is when they started to like pick back up a bit more.
Yeah.
But
But I mean, like, as different as this music is to like the music that that I'm used to, there are like the concept of a concept album itself. I can see how this album kind of pioneered it. Like even if you look at Logic's Incredible True Story, it's got
Hmm.
kind of like a similar story as far as like being in space, making an album about beings that aren't human. But how do you do
Hmm.
that with such like a human emotion of music?
Hmm.
Lupe Fiasco's latest album, Drogas Wave, or the one before Drill Music, is about slaves who who are coming from Africa, jump off of the boat and live in the ocean, and I think they swim back, but I can't remember. The
Hmm.
Cool Lupe Fiasco is a concept album where a kid gets robbed. No, a gangster's at the top of his game, and then he gets shot, and he gets brought back to life, and he gets robbed with the same gun that they shot him with,
Mm.
that he was originally shot with. And it was a
Right.
concept that was explored on Food and Liquor. And then he ended up turning it into an entire album with The Cool. And you
Hmm.
kind of see it's, kind of like a storytelling of a guy who rises up and has a fall from grace and kind of has to like come back and recover or like understand exactly who he is.
Hmm.
So I think now I'm gonna listen to whenever I listen to the next concept album, I'm gonna think about it a little bit differently because I'll be like, I wonder if I can hear any influence from what David Bowie did um in this album, because I definitely think like David Bowie is like, I can't tell you any concept album from the 60s. And I think
Hmm.
David Bowie, because I still know how big he is,
Hmm.
he likely helped kind of almost popularize it or bring it kind of like to like mainstream, to like, this idea that like your album can tell a specific story about a specific character. Like in The Cool for Lupe, his name was Mike Cool, Michael, Michael Young History. And the way he would
Hmm.
say it is My Cool Young History. Like
Hmm.
Mike Cool. Like, it was kind of
Yeah.
like a play on words, kind of like, and David Bowie, just Ziggy Stardust is the
Yeah.
name of the album. So I think it's very interesting that it's a concept, that's a story that like I would not have imagined, and I feel like would be cool to see like adapted as a film almost, or like some kind of visual representation to go along with it. I feel like it'd be weird. I feel like it can't be done now that, sadly David Bowie is no longer with us. I think it needs to just be left because I think he should be the one to do it if anybody did. Um, but that's an interesting concept to explore, and I would not have guessed that for your top album.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, I just found out it existed. So do you feel like it fits where it's at, or should it be higher, or do you think it's placed like well on the list where
It
Apple Music
placed
has it?
it placed 24
Oh, that's pretty
on
high.
Apple's list. Yeah, it's
It's really
pretty
high,
high.
actually. Yeah.
I and looking at the ones that come before it, like I think it's better than Taylor Swift's 1989. Um, I don't
Agreed.
really is I think is better than Revolt. Why does the Beatles need two albums on here? Get the Revolver out of here and put it higher. That's what that's what I say. It did just beat out s- uh
Kind of
Kind
Blue.
of Blue,
Because Kind of Blue is 25, yeah.
because Kind of Blue is 25. Um, Me personally, yeah, I absolutely think it should be higher up on that list, just because it's so, I don't know, and that that concept is only part of what the album has going for it. There's a lot of it's about like him and his ego with, like he's commentating on like stardom at that point too, because he, in his career he started off making very like traditional like British pop rock, something that sounds very reminiscent of the Beatles. Like if you listen to like his very early album or his very first album, and then he starts experimenting, and all those experiments led us to Ziggy Stardust, and I'm so grateful. I think it's probably, to my ears, the best album I've ever listened to.
Wow.
And I don't see it moving anytime soon.
Now, do you think that's the last thing I'll ask you about it? Do you think that his character Ziggy Stardust was influenced in any way by his own life and experiences, or like his own personality, I guess? Or do you think
Oh,
this is more someone he made up?
oh, 100%, because this was when he had first like publicly come out as being queer.
Oh, okay.
When this album had come out. And so in part it's also paving the way for a lot of, queer icons to then like later feel comfortable in presenting themselves. That's why Ziggy Stardust is an androgynous bisexual rock star.
Hmm.
It's intentionally trying to bend like public perceptions because he was already a big name, and then to have this weird character that goes against at the time norms was big and influential.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. So like, yeah, because like when I think about other concept albums, like I said, Logic's character from The Incredible Story, I don't think that's based on himself. I think, and Lupe's My Cool Young History, it's just a random guy that he made up. So it's very interesting how like this is kind of like David Bowie talking about himself, but through another lens. It kind of gives you a way to look at yourself almost through another perspective when you kind of do it like this.
Mhm.
So yeah, man.
Mhm.
All right. So we started this at 4 o'clock, by the way, and it's now 8:45.
I haven't seen my friends or family in days.
My wife just left. She's like, whatever, just keep going. Um, it was kind of ambitious for us to want to do this, but we knew we wanted to. I did not, I was not quite prepared for how long it was going to take.
Mhm.
Totally worth it, but
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
yeah,
As always, we underestimated how much we can talk about things.
agreed. So I've got
So
some chopping up to do. I'm not sure if I'm going to split this into 3 parts, or like originally it was going to be 2 parts. Now it's looking like 3 parts. Now I'm wondering if I have to do it in 4 parts. But I'll figure it out, and we'll all be able to listen to it. So these are our top 100 albums. I'm gonna go through the list of apples one more time, and then I'm gonna name mine one more time, and then you can go through yours one more time, just to kind of put a button on it, because I mean we haven't been talking for that long, and I'm sure we people want to hear us keep going. So at number 10, Apple Music has Lemonade by Beyonce. At number 9, they have Nevermind by Nirvana. At number 8, they have Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. Number 7 is Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. Number 6 is Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. Number 5 is Blonde by Frank Ocean. Number 4 is Purple Rain by Prince. Number 3 is Abbey Road by the Beatles. Number 2 is Thriller by Michael Jackson. And number 1 is The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill.
and so, Will, what were your 10?
My
Run
top
us through
10
it.
were number 10 is Do You Want More by The Roots, 9, Late Registration by Kanye West, 8, We Got It From Here, Thank You for Your Service by Tribe Called Quest, 7, Love in the Future by John Legend, 6, Birth of the Cool by Miles Davis, 5, Q's Juke Joint by Quincy Jones, 4, Ology by Gallant, 3, Coloring Book by Chance the Rapper, 2, Tetsuo and Youth by Lupe Fiasco, and number 1 is The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill.
Bro, I've got ADHD and it shows in my taste. Um, 10 is All Eyes on Me, Tupac. 9 is Ready to Die, Biggie Smalls. 8 is You Don't Mess Around with Jim by Jim Croce. 7, Nirvana, Nevermind. 6, Enter the Wu-Tang by Wu-Tang Clan. 5, Sweet Baby James by James Taylor. 4, Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. 3, To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar. 2, I Got a Name, Jim Croce. And number 1, Daft Punk, Discovery, or Interstellar, 5555, Story of the Secret Star System.
The
All right.
preferred way to experience that.
Yeah.
movie.
Correct.
The correct way.
And mine, to run it back, we have number 10, Led Zeppelin 4, by Led Zeppelin. Number 9, Alma by Paco de Lucia. And number 8, 99.9% by Kaytranada. Number 7, Igor by Tyler, the Creator. Number 6, we have the MTV Unplugged concert by Nirvana, the recording. By number 5, Stadium Arcadium by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Number 4 is Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Number 3, we have Headhunters by Herbie Hancock. But number 2, we have Mama's Gun by Erykah Badu. And then number 1, we have The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie.
All right. Well, if you stayed with us this long, thank you so much. Again, send us your top 10 albums in the chat.
Yeah.
And
What did you think of tell us what you thought of Apple's list too? Did you agree with their placements? If not, tell us what you would have had at number 1.
and tell us what you thought of our placements as well. Is there a similar album you would have put on there, or even if you didn't like them? Any thoughts? We want to know them. Leave your comments down below, and we will see you guys next time.